Today's video takes you into one of the most emotional, breathtaking, and history-making events the music world has witnessed in decades: the unforgettable farewell to the legendary Jimmy Cliff, a name that echoes in the soul of reggae, a man whose voice carried the weight of a nation and the hope of an entire generation. As thousands gathered, both inside and outside the venue, the air felt heavy yet sacred, filled with a mix of sorrow, gratitude, and an overwhelming sense that the world was saying goodbye to a true giant. People from across Jamaica, across the Caribbean, across oceans and continents came together because Jimmy Cliff wasn't just a musician. He was a movement, a revolution, a voice of humanity that broke boundaries and united cultures. The streets outside were lined with fans holding candles, flags, posters, and vinyl records so old the edges had nearly faded, each one a memory, a piece of their childhood, their life, their journey. As the doors opened, the powerful scent of fresh flowers swept through the space. White roses, red anthuriums, tropical blooms arranged with love and detail, symbolizing purity, strength, and the fire Jimmy brought to the world. Inside, the atmosphere was overwhelming. The walls were filled with images of Jimmy throughout the years. Young and determined, bold and revolutionary, wise and unstoppable. His greatest performances played softly on the screens, moments that defined eras, concerts that shook entire stadiums, interviews where he spoke truth with calm confidence. You could see people staring at these images with tears streaming down their faces, remembering the first time they heard his voice, the first time his lyrics touched their heart, the first time his songs gave them courage. As the ceremony began, a hush swept over the room. You could hear nothing but quiet breathing and the soft echoes of distant sobs. Artists, producers, cultural leaders, icons from every side of the music world stepped forward to share stories that brought Jimmy Cliff to life in ways the world had never heard before. They spoke of his early days in St. James, the hills where he learned to dream, the streets where he learned to fight for his voice, the small recording studios where his talent exploded into a force no one could contain. They shared intimate memories, Jimmy arguing passionately about justice, Jimmy laughing with the innocence of a child, Jimmy lifting up younger artists and helping them shine, even when he could have kept the spotlight for himself. Every story built a picture of a man whose greatness wasn't measured by fame, but by heart, humility, and purpose. But just when the emotions felt like they had reached their peak, the room fell into an even deeper silence. A silence so intense that people instinctively placed their hands over their hearts, because at that moment, Jimmy Cliff's beloved wife, Latifa Chambers, stood up from her seat and began walking toward the podium. Her presence alone shifted the energy in the room entirely. She walked slowly, gracefully, carrying not just grief but strength, dignity, and decades of love. Her steps echoed through the hall, each one a reminder of the life they built together, of the nights spent creating music, of the mornings spent dreaming about the future, of the private joy and private pain that only a partner truly knows. When Latifa finally reached the microphone, she took a long, steady breath, and the entire hall held theirs. You could feel thousands of hearts beat as one, waiting for the words that only she could speak. And when she finally began, her voice was soft, trembling, but filled with the purest love. She didn't talk about Jimmy Cliff the legend. She talked about Jimmy Cliff the human being, the man who loved deeply, who prayed every morning, who hugged his family tightly, who believed in kindness before fame, who never forgot where he came from. She shared stories the world had never heard, how he would stay up late writing songs, not for money, not for awards, but because he believed music was his purpose, his duty, his gift to humanity. She spoke about his fears, his dreams, his victories, his heartbreaks, and how he always said that the greatest reward in life was touching even one soul with a song. As she spoke, people were crying openly, men, women, elders, children, because every word felt like a window into the true heart of the man they had admired for so long. She talked about their marriage, their partnership, their laughter, the way he would hum new melodies while cooking, the way he would dance with her in the living room when no one was watching. She talked about his strength during difficult moments, about how he always carried the weight of the world on his shoulders but still made time for love, for family, for joy. And then came the line that broke the entire room, the line that will be remembered for generations. A line so powerful and so deeply emotional that the entire erupted into tears. Jimmy didn't just give music to the world, he gave his soul. And that soul lives in all of us forever. The moment she said those words, people stood up instinctively. A standing ovation thundered through the venue, echoing off the walls, shaking the hearts of everyone inside. Even those who had tried to stay composed could no longer hold back. Latifa herself broke down, and members of the family gently wrapped their arms around her as the applause grew louder, longer, and more intense. It wasn't just applause, it was love, gratitude, respect, and the world's final thank you to a man who dedicated his life to making the world better through his voice. As the ceremony came to its final moments, a choir softly began singing "Many Rivers to Cross," and soon the entire room joined in, thousands of voices singing together in trembling harmony, their tears falling but their spirits lifted. Jimmy Cliff's casket, beautifully adorned with tropical flowers and symbols of his culture, was carried through the crowd. People reached out to touch it gently, whispering blessings, prayers, and final goodbyes. Outside, the crowd waiting began chanting his name, raising candles into the sky, turning the entire city into a glowing tribute of light and love. The sound of his music filled the streets, playing from speakers, from phones, from the hearts of people who had grown up listening to him. And as the sun set that evening, casting warm orange light across Jamaica, it felt as though the entire universe paused to honor one man. A man whose voice will never die, whose legacy will never fade, whose impact will echo through generations.